Chapter 151. First level Administrator Thompson and second level Administrator Ryan were among the 12 administrators dispatched from the Imperial Palace to the north, who did not move to another estate and remained next to the second prince. When the dispatch was first decided, colleagues sympathized with them. Now the two were very pleased to have come north. Only one reason was because of Perez, the second prince. His work was very efficient and accurate, enough to receive an award as the best graduate of the academy and graduate early. Also, there was not a single mistake. Watching that from that side, Thompson and Ryan, who are administrators to the bone, were relieved. Perez got up before dawn today, as well, and was working at a tremendous speed. Next, Your Highness, why don't you take a break? Thompson. Yes, Your Highness. Are you free enough to take a break? Oh no, it was time for Thompson to hand over his sweaty approval papers. Perez. Wait. Perez, who suddenly looked up and checked the time, said, It's already this time. Take a break and get out to the field. It was surprising. As Perez said a while ago, he never took a break. It's time for guests. As soon as Perez's word was done, he heard a knock on the door. Your Highness, it's me, Lord Ivan. I asked you to meet. Can I talk to you for a moment? Before Ryan, who quickly went outside, could even announce the arrival of the visitor, Lord Ivan half pushed in and said with a firm face. Perez nodded briefly instead of answering. Thompson and Ryan moved away, leaving only two people in the room. Tell me, Lord Ivan. As soon as Perez's permission was granted, Lord Ivan spoke in an angry voice. He seemed to have had enough patience. Please stop exercising your power right now, Your Highness. Perez's voice, on the other hand, was so calm. Exercise, ignoring Ivan's householder and unilaterally distributing relief money to the lords of the north. But Perez tilted his head slightly instead of answering. Lord Ivan frowned upon the sight. Are you saying you didn't do that right now? No, I don't quite understand the word unilaterally. What if it's not unilateral? Lord Ivan walked to Perez's desk with a high voice. I've made it clear the north will not accept imperial help. We will take care of our affairs. Nevertheless, the prince unilaterally distributed relief money to the lords of the north. Then it means there's still no change in the idea of not receiving imperial help, of course. Then I can't help it. Perez nodded and put down the pen in his hand and slowly lifted himself. No matter how strong Lord Ivan is for his age, he is no match for Perez. Before he knew it, Lord Ivan was below Perez's eye level. Jerome Ivan. Perez called his full name in a low voice, and Lord Ivan winced in a small measure. He was crushed by the spirit. I gave you a chance. You are the head of the Ivan family, representing the north, and the one who is gravely responsible for the landslide. Perez pulled a bunch of papers out of the drawer, but I feel like you didn't deserve that opportunity. A bundle of papers thrown by Perez fell before Lord Ivan with a dull thud. This is the first record that the lords used the relief money I sent. Lord Ivan's eyes trembled as he quickly went through the contents of the document. Food, medicine, and the manpower needed for reconstruction work, all of which had to be paid in a hurry and urgent. But the lords and the people of the land had to wait without getting help at the right time because of you, Lord Ivan. Perez's red eyes glowed brightly, staring at Lord Ivan. Nevertheless, they waited, believing that Ivan will take responsibility. Farmland was covered in landslides, running out of food, and waiting for the wounded to die due to lack of medicine. I didn't know that Ivan didn't have the ability to be in charge of everyone. Perez turned around the desk and stood in front of Lord Ivan. So I moved myself. I gave you a chance to take responsibility for the landslide, as I assured everyone, but I don't think you have a chance. There was now contempt in the eyes of Lord Ivan. Jerome Ivan, once this has come to an end, I will propose to His Majesty the removal of your household title. Jerome Ivan is no longer qualified to represent the North. You can't. Think again who I am. Lord Ivan shut up, trying to refute. The prince, who had been given an order of desolation, was obliged to report the course and outcome of his mission to the emperor in detail. The entire Ivan family will likely be held accountable, not just Jerome Ivan. If he does something wrong, Ivan could lose his qualification as the northern representative. You'll have to make the right choice, Lord Ivan. Will Jerome Ivan make an individual mistake, and will he be withdrawn from the family, or will he hold Ivan the whole accountable? Perez said coldly. It was then, rumbling, dump. There was the sound of a large object falling down, along with a slight tremor of the ground. Perez and Lord Ivan's heads headed to the place where the sound came from at the same time. A landslide. Perez quietly frowned at the ominous feeling of approaching. Asterisk. The reason Megente Ivan asked me to meet him at the bridge reconstruction site was simple. This was because he wanted to show firsthand that the bridge was being restored with Lombardi's help. Me and Megente Ivan talked while looking around the busy scene of people with timber on their shoulders. I received a letter from my brother last night, and I heard the circumstances. The lady was the first to reach out when everyone turned away from Ivan. Certainly over the night, Migante Ivan's expression was much better. From the beginning, he was a person who treated not only Perez but also me and Avenox with appropriate courtesy, but now his attitude toward me is even polite. I won't forget this, Grace, Lady Lombardi. Don't mention it, Sir Ivan. It makes me feel good to think that I succeeded in making a good impression on future Lord Ivan. But I answered with a humble smile to the end. As I have said to you, it is natural to help each other in times of need. It was quite a cliche, but Migante Ivan seemed very impressed. That's right, you're right, and spoke in a distinctive, cheerful voice. If there's anything I can do to help the lady later, I'll help you over and over again. Oh, of course, Ivan and Lombardi should help each other. After going around the neighborhood like that, someone came to the scene and found Migante Ivan. It was like Lord Ivan sent it. The Patriarch is in a hurry to find Lord Migente. I think you should come right back to the mansion. Okay. The expression of the messenger was unusual. Migente Ivan felt it too, and his complexion hardened in the same way. Go ahead, I'll take a look around the site a little bit more. Yes, then I'll see you at the mansion. After that, I had a conversation with Lombardi construction engineers on the ground. It was to make sure there was nothing else needed for safe work. After talking like that, I got on the courage. It was because the dark clouded sky became darker faster than usual. The bridge reconstruction site was not far from Ivan Mansion. It was only a few steps past the winding mountain slopes. I was just thinking it in a wobbly courage. Go back to my room and take a warm bath. I walked carefully, but my muddy feet are very cold. Wow. But I could feel the long-running carriage slowly slowing down. What's going on? Ivan's family carriage is standing in front of us. I wonder if the wheels are off. What should I do? A coachman asked me. Somehow I felt like I was going to laugh. I don't know why Migente Ivan keeps on owing me things. I opened the carriage door myself and looked outside. At the point where there was only one pass left until Ivan Mansion, I could see Migente Ivan and the coachman having a conversation with a troubled face. Are you okay, Lord Ivan? Oh, Lady Lombardi, I'm not hurt. The wagon collapsed. Haha, it's going to take some time to fix it. I heard a little while ago that you had to hurry back to the mansion. If you don't mind, why don't you join me in my carriage? Then I'll be ashamed of myself and get help again, lady. It's not free. I'm going to put all of them on the books under the name of Lord Ivan. The carriage carrying Migente Ivan and me started moving again. Thank you very much, lady. There aren't many cases of urgent calls like this. I don't know if it's an accidental. That's what I'm saying, but Migente Ivan had a rough look on his face. But it's about time that Perez handed out relief money to the lords, and I've helped make it possible. He'd be more in a hurry for Lord Ivan's emergency call. At that time, I heard the voice of the coachman from outside saying, "Oh, sorry, the road is slippery." It's okay, it has been raining nonstop since dawn, and the road is very slippery. Yes, it rained all day yesterday, and today it rained from dawn. My heart began to thump uneasily. I hurriedly opened the window of the carriage and checked out. Fortunately, the mountain was still. No, it was too quiet, as if all the mountain animals had already escaped the mountain. Please speed up. Hurry back to the mansion. At that moment, I witnessed the road where the carriage is running is collapsing from the front. It was like watching a crumbling sandcastle. Rumbling. Before long, the slope next to the road began to sweep down with the sound of the mountain stretching out. No matter how experienced the coachman is, what can he do when the road collapses? For a short time, my eyes met with Migente Ivan, who had yet to grasp the situation. Quickly closing the window, I pulled on the Migente Ivan and leaned down to the deepest point between the carriage seats. Kuang, a great shock hit the carriage, and the heavy darkness hit us. End of chapter 151. Chapter 152. An indescribable foreboding wrapped around Perez. After running out of his office, with Lord Ivan behind his back, he frantically searched the mansion, calling out the name of Florentia. Tia, where are you, Tia? The people of the mansion and the imperial administrators also murmured at the sight of the scene. Some even helped find Florentia. Perez ran to Florentia's bedroom. Then he opened the door and shouted, Tia, but it was Becky, a maid who was cleaning up her clothes. Lady Florentia at the bridge construction site. Perez gritted his teeth, not to scream. Instead, he gave strength to the hand that held the sword so that the knuckles were white. Perez, who was running down the stairs of the mansion. Perez immediately got on the horse and headed for the guard post at the gate. Perhaps during an emergency meeting, the surprised captain looked at Perez, who suddenly came in. Where the bridge collapsed, which way is the road leading from there? The captain of the guard silently pointed to the collapsed mountain. Then Lord Ivan also arrived at the guard post in a hurry. Get people to go to the place where the landslide happened. We're going to make sure there are no casualties. It was then Lord Ivan ordered with a stiff face. The captain of the guard said with a sad look on his face, just before the landslide, I saw a carriage on the road being swept into it. Whose carriage is it? Lombardi's. It was a carriage with Lombardi pattern on it. Gasp. People were shocked. There was only one person riding in a carriage with the emblem of Lombardi at Ivan's estate. Florentia Lombardi. Florentia Lombardi is buried under the mountain of the rock and the pile. Well, that can't be. Lord Ivan's face turned pale. The last string of reasons left with Perez was also cut. Gasp. Rough Perez's hand grabbed our Lord Ivan by the collar as if it was going to rip off his clothes. Lord. The guards approached in surprise, but no one intervened recklessly. Everyone knew that the Northern Reconstruction Project was being delayed due to Lord Ivan's refusal to accept relief money. During such a situation, Lady Lombardi had an accident at Ivan's estate. Furthermore, Perez's hideous energy was warning anyone to be prepared to give up their neck if they wanted to approach him. Lord Ivan knew what he had done, so he shrieked and didn't dare to run away. Perez growled in a low voice with a throbbing sound. Now, do you understand what you've done, Lord Ivan? Lord Ivan just shut up and didn't answer. Huang. Perez, who pushed away from such an Ivan, slammed the door out with a roar. His horse arrived in the slope, which had collapsed through the stronger rain and wind. Guards and Lord Ivan followed suit, but no one reached their destination could speak. The road was cut off by the soil that had been pushed down, and the large rock rolled down from the middle of the mountain was weighing heavily on it. Oh, of all things, the rock. To dig up the soil, they had to remove this huge rock first, but it will probably take a few days just to do it, and nothing lasts so long buried beneath it. But they couldn't let go of their hand like this. It was Florentia Lombardi. Lord Ivan ordered the guards with blood veins around his neck. All men must first move the rocks that can be moved by force, and you go back to the mansion and get the tools to split the rocks. This is where Florentia Lombardi should not die. If it did, he couldn't afford to withdraw from his position as Lord Ivan. Lord Ivan did not know that his white hair was all wet and gave orders loudly to several people. Come on, move, come on, yes. It was when a couple of men with their arms rolled up approached the topmost rock. Standing in the corner, looking at a pile of rocks, Perez pushed the soldier in front of him aside. Get out of the way. Perez spits out a word in a low voice, and clang, a blue glow flashed with a sharp metallic sound. A dazzling blue aura sword was rising from Perez's sword, quickly pulled out of the scabbard. When Perez swung the sword for the second time, a huge rock split in half and rolled down. Nevertheless, Perez did not stop. He just broke a huge rock while swinging his sword like crazy. He swung once and struck the sword 5 or 10 times if the rock did not crack. Clang, clang. Oh. Lord Ivan's order fell to the soldiers standing, looking at the figure in a vague state. Do something, move the cut rock. Oh yeah, oh I see. Lord Ivan, who confirmed the soldiers were moving, looked at Perez's back. Aura is powerful, but no one can pull out aura indefinitely. In particular, cutting hard objects like rocks consumes enormous mana. Sure enough, the blue aura was blinking again and again. But Perez swung the sword silently. Sometimes a bare sword without an aura hits a rock. Clang. Eventually, on a wielding blade of the sword, the red blood that began in Perez's hand scattered over the rock. However, Perez's movement did not stop. Clang, clang, the number of drops of blood that quietly wet the floor in the noise of the rocks breaking only increased. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. I have a splitting headache. What happened? I heard a strange sound as I moved my arm to hold onto my throbbing head. Crack, crack. When I opened my eyes, which were hard to open, I could see the inside of the dark carriage with little light. I was lying in the floor of the carriage where I leaned down for the last time. Oh, blood. The hand that touched my forehead came out with blood so that it turned red. And at my feet, I saw Ivan lying down. Oh, Lord Ivan. Migente Ivan, who like me, is unconscious, reacted to my voice but couldn't open his eyes. In the end, are we trapped? I lifted myself carefully. My head throbbed unbearably every time I moved, but I can't stand it like this. It took me a long time to sit on the carriage chair, and I looked around. Fortunately, the air seems to be coming in from up there. Fortunately, or unfortunately, we can breathe thanks to the little rock that broke through the carriage ceiling. Of course, now I feel like I had hit my forehead on that rock while lying on the carriage floor. As I looked up, adapting my eyes to the darkness as much as I could, the upper part was covered with dirt and soil and loosely intertwined rocks. So when I moved my body greatly, the dirt and soil fell, but at the same time, a small wind was coming in through the hole. I'm glad I got in a big, sturdy carriage. If I knew this would happen, I would have packed my survival bag in the carriage. No, if I had known this was going to happen, I wouldn't have gotten out of bed. I try to relax my thinking by thinking about such unsympathetic things alone, but I keep getting scared by my throbbing head and darkness. I feel suffocated even though I know that air is flowing and the wind is coming in. Oh, where are we? Then Migente Ivan opened his eyes. At the same time, a strange sense of relief poured in. Oh, I'm not alone in this. With a short breath, I spoke to Migente Ivan. Are you get of your consciousness? I think we were swept away by a landslide. Ah, yes. Is the lady okay? I'm a little hurt, but I'm fine. Fortunately, I have to get up now. Oh, you could have been hurt. Don't push yourself and lie down. At my words, Megante Ivan nodded, frowning. I'm sorry, Lady Lombardi. What? Because of my father's stubbornness, originally this hillside was also scheduled for construction in preparation for additional landslides. I should have pushed harder. I did not say anything. I couldn't say it's okay with empty words. As if he knew how I felt, Migente Ivan laughed bitterly. Because of my indecision, the lady has to experience like this. Ugh. Mumbling like that, Migente Ivan crawled up and sat down. Then, with desperate eyes, he looked up at the hole in the ceiling. The day will never come When we can see the light again here like this, it'll only take a few days. Yes, if you hang in there, there will be a day of sunshine in this courage. But I know usually when a landslide is swept away, everyone gets stuck and dies. But this time it will be different. End of chapter 154. 52. End of chapter 152. Chapter 153. I said so, brushing off the dirt that had accumulated on the seat next to me. Lady Lombardi, Megante Ivan looked at me pitifully, wondering if I thought I was denying reality. But I shook my head, and I lifted the part where the hip touched. It was a hidden space containing simple food to eat and drink in the carriage. It was especially made by Clarivan for me, who couldn't stand the curiosity of food. Unfortunately, I saw a couple of full water bottles, bread to eat, and chocolate cookies. That bread was given by Violet a few days ago, and the chocolate cookie was put in by Perez. I choked up when I thought of precious people, but I didn't cry. I can't waste water and energy in my body like that. I spoke in a casual voice to Megante Ivan, who still looked at me with anxious eyes. I'm sorry to say this, Sir Ivan. That's right, it can be difficult if Sir Ivan alone is trapped in this carriage. If so, it's probably only Ivan's people who are trying to get this carriage out. But in here, I'm with you. That meant a lot of people would be moving in search of this carriage, because I'm Lombardi. Ah, the Lombardi family will try to save me with every resource possible. Oh, and His Highness Second Prince. I can tell Megante Ivan, but it also includes Clarivan and Pellet. Yeah, everyone's gonna move. So we just need to stay alive until a lot of people get rid of all that dirt and rock. I'm not actually saying this to Megante Ivan. It was a word to myself that kept getting anxious. Fortunately, my mind calmed down as if it worked. In my clearer mind, a little rough, warm hand that wrapped around my hand came to my mind. They're coming to save me, I thought as I gripped the spout of the cold water bottle. Dot ****. John, the butler of the Lombardi family, pulled the red paper from the ankle of a bird flying over the mansion with a dark complexion. The red paper meant urgency. Besides, the kind of bird was a big hawk. It was a species that was faster than a regular bird, but was rarely used unless it was too precious to be on the verge. After confirming the contents by urgently opening the letter, John immediately moved on. Clack, clack, clack. At first, he was walking a little faster, but it gradually got faster. By the time he got to the Lord's office, John was running completely. Blow. Today is the third day of the week. After a long time, the householder and the brother and sister looked at John at the same time. What's going on? Interfering with the meeting, Lulak asked, assuming something had happened. Gasped Lady Florentia in a landslide. What? Lulak couldn't wait and jumped up and grabbed a red piece of paper from John's hand and read it. Father? After hearing the name of Florentia, Galliahan also strode up. Gallian simultaneously checked the contents of the paper. Brooke. Gallian staggered with a pale face. Galliahan. Shannonette quickly approached and assisted Galliahan and asked Lulak, what's the matter, father? Tia, this is the message from Lord Ivan that she was swept away by a landslide. What did you say now? Shannonette quickly read the letter, dotting her ears. No way, no way, Tia, why? Galliahan was mesmerized and muted, unable to breathe properly. Shannonette's hand, which held Galliahan's shoulder, was shaking. Lulak read the letter again as if to confirm and said, not a single sentence here that says about Tia. It's just that the wagon was washed away by soil, and he immediately grabbed Galliahan's clothes hard and forced him up. Wake up, Galliahan, you're Tia's father. What if you lose your mind? The consciousness was also returned to Galliahan's eyes, which had been blurred by the loud voice of Lulak. My father said, that's right, our Tia could still be safe in there. Yeah, that's right. Galliahan's body, which was shaking like a queen's, gradually stopped shaking, and Galliahan, who rose, clenched his fist and said, I'll go to Ivan. Please include the Knights of Lombardy. Lulak nodded his head. Take all the first and second squad knights. It meant to leave the least amount of troops to protect Lombardy's mansion. Twins can run fast and it will help. I want to see if there's any equipment in the Lombardy mine in Ivan that can help to rescue. Shannonette said, we will take care of the latecomers and send them. I'll give you news from Ivan to the west, so Galliahan, you can start right away. Please, father. Galliahan stormed out of the Lord's office as if when he stumbled. Lulak then told John, John, get the carriage ready. Yes, Lord. John ran out as well, and Lulak took his breath for a moment to get ready. But he had to do it again and again because of his shaky hands. Shannonette, who was not able to see it, approached and asked, helping him get dressed. Why, where are you going? I'm going to the palace. I'm going to ask Javanes to give me an imperial order. If it's imperial order, to all the lords of the mansion on the road from Lombardy to Ivan, make sure that the knights of Lombardy pass without check and keep the gates open at night. My father is right. It would be faster if there was imperial order. As Laurels watched the whole scene with wide eyes, he murmured, scratching his head, but if she has been swept away by a landslide, bang! There was a roar in the office. Lulak pushed the heavy hanger in front of him to the side and knocked it over. Laurels! With sour anger, Lulak called his son as if he was warning him. Laurel's shoulders shook. I can't afford to overlook your mistakes anymore today. Watch your word. Laurels nodded quickly. Tia's gonna be fine, father, Shannonette said softly. Lulak nodded his head. Yeah, she'll be fine. She'll be fine. She is Lulak's granddaughter. She is a very strong kid. So she'll be fine. Mumbling to himself several times, Lulak left the office with a small wind. Shannonette, who sighed quietly, also tried to clean up her seat and move. Where is my sister going? As if all these storms were someone else, Vise appears with a fine face. I'm going to pick up Dr. Estira. Tia could be hurt, so we have to get ready. Vise frowned for a moment but said no more. Shannonette, who had a clue what he wanted to say, looked coldly at such Vise once and hurried to walk. However, the place where Shannonette was headed was not the building where Estira's laboratory was located. Shannonette headed to her office, hurriedly pulled out a piece of paper and scribbled short words. There was one more person who really needed to know that something big happened to Florentia. Shannonette, who sealed the envelope carefully, called a young servant. Deliver this correspondence to the Pellet Corporation right now. And once again, she said it. You must pass it on to Clarivan Pellet himself and not to anyone else. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. 2 days had already passed since the accident happened. Another big shock swept Ivan's estate as it was known that Megante Ivan was riding together with in Lombardi's carriage. All the workers who were restoring the walls were mobilized to rescue them, but relentlessly progress was slow and people let out a weary sigh. But there was a man who didn't care about anything. Clang, clang, a wretched sound of iron rang. Perez's sword spinning blue aura gradually lost its light. It was a miracle to wield a sword without eating or sleeping properly. Gasp, gasp. Perez breathed Perez breathed hard and fixed the sword. Your Highness, Second Prince, Ivan's guard captain, who couldn't see it, grabbed Perez's arm. Take a little break. Let go of me. Aren't you well aware that you may never be able to grab a sword again if you manage to the aura so hard? Let go. Perez said so and shook the guard captain's hand. And with half-blown eyes, he looked at the spot in the ground, like a man who instinctively knows that the courage carrying Florentia is buried there. Perez murmured, wiping the sweat that had flowed into his eyes. Without Tia, there's no reason to hold the sword anymore. Perez, remembering the brightly smiling face, once again grabbed the handle of his sword. Tears and blood dripped from the torn wound on his grip, which had just healed again. But regardless of the pain, the blue light of Perez's sword was new. Clang, clang, a louder sound rang at the collapsed forest. Ivan's guard captain said, looking up at the rain-sprinkling sky, if only we had more men. He heard the news from other provinces in the north and sent people, but it was just a handful. Everyone had no choice but to restore their land and prevent further landslides. Then someone shouted out loud, there's people coming. It looks like they're soldiers from another estate. The surprised guard captain jumped up to a high place and saw where the soldier pointed. The pattern is, a total of 4 flags rose suddenly in a large group of dozens. All were flags of families in the central part of the empire, further south of Ivan. The group was getting closer, and the knight who rode the horse at the forefront stood in front of Ivan's guard captain and said, we are the people of Pasente Vilts, Banafe, and Enfaria. At the Imperial Order, we came to help Lady Lombardi's rescue work. End of chapter 134. Chapter 154. It's dark. There was no clue how many days had passed. It would be nice to put a watch on my wrist at times like this. I tried to think so. Now, I'm wearing a time-sensitive watch, trying to lift my arm. However, because of lack of power, even that simple movement took a long time. The skin on the back of the hand was dry, and the veins stood out. It was only natural that I only ate enough food and water to hold my breath. I turned my head and looked at the chair opposite me. Migante Ivan was fast asleep, with his eyes closed. Even the appearance of a dead person is not lively enough to believe. I listened in a moment of fear. Luckily, I heard a very shallow breath. Oh, thank God. To be honest, it was a relief that Migante Ivan was not left alone rather than that he was safe. Inside the quiet carriage, I only could hear a small wind responding. When we first got stuck here, we talked a lot, but it was also a luxury to talk more and more. As such, fatigue and hunger came quickly. The conversation decreased rapidly, and the time to sleep increased. Now all I did was open my eyes and look at the ceiling from the time to time and see that Migante Ivan was still breathing. And when I reached the point where I can't stand my thirst anymore, click, I carefully opened the lid of the water bottle I was placing on my side. And just one sip, I closed my eyes and swallowed the water, feeling as much as possible as the water went into my body. Ha, it was too bad. There's no way this great thirst can be solved. Sometimes I felt more thirsty. At that time, I was caught up in the urge to give up everything and drink all the water. But I can't. I can't give up here. If I hold on a little, if I hold on, they will come to save me. I'll be able to get out of this dark and narrow space and get back to my daily life as if this had never happened. I could only resist the urge to think like that. Instead, I kept sleeping like Megante Ivan. And I had a dream. In my dream, I wasn't trapped in the ground. Instead, I dreamed of reading books peacefully in my mansion and walking through familiar Lombardy's downtown. Sometimes I dreamed of my previous life. I see Perez riding a horse on the distance in the multitude of crowds, shoulder to shoulder, Perez, with an expressionless face, only looks down at the people gathered to see him with an emotionless gaze. Then I take a deep breath until my chest swells. Then my throat bursts and I call out his name, Perez. At that moment, Perez's red eyes look at me. For a brief fleeting time, I succumb. Will you recognize me? And as if to soothe my heart, Perez's eyes are filled with vitality, with a secret smile that only I know. He opens his mouth to call my name, but dreams always end there. I want to hear Perez's voice. I can't hear. I'll definitely listen to it this time. Feeling sleepy again, I muttered. I just fell asleep, hoping to hear Perez calling me in my dream this time. Tia, wait, I think someone called my name. But deep sleep struck me again before I could open my eyes again. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. How many people will it take to move the mountain? Violet murmured so blankly at the rescue scene where countless people came and went. Lombardy's power was great, starting with soldiers from the central region who arrived on the second day. Helping hands gathered one after another. The mercenaries hired by Pallet Corporation rolled up their sleeves, and engineers at the Lombardy construction, who originally came for Ivan's reconstruction, also tried to prevent further collapse. The next day, heavy equipment arrived from nearby Lombardy mines. Since then, rescue efforts have continued to increase. Throughout the day, dozens of people took turns carrying stones and scooping out dirt, so the collapsed mountain was disappearing little by little from the top. It's literally moving mountains, but in the face of a restless time, the man who was so helpless. It was already the fourth day of the accident. As the sun dimmed, large torches stood here and there. It was to continue working at night, but now, those involved in rescue operations are beginning to question one by one. Is Lady Lombardi still alive? Violet already knew that such a conversation would take place when one or two people sat around during the break, even though everyone did not show up. It was the workers who had experienced several collapses in the mine that helped in this situation. There's a lot of big rocks and piles of dirt, so the air will flow pretty low. That word was now the only hope of Violet and the people. What kind of person do you think Lady Florentia is? Violet pulled herself together by saying so. Then Ramona, who brought a steaming drink, talked to Violet. Have a warm drink, Miss Violet. Ramona, one of the first to run after hearing of Laurentia's accident, works with others to distribute food to rescue workers and treat them if anyone is injured. Thank you, Miss Ramona. I'm sure Lady Lombardi is safe. Cheer up, Miss Violet. Thank you, Violet said with a weak smile. You must be very close, Miss Violet and Lady Lombardi. Lady Florentia is the reason I work for Pellet. She is the one who helped me dream bigger. I'm sure there are many other people who can't pay back to Lady Florentia. That's the kind of person she is, Lady Florentia. She is a person who receives a lot of love. Ramona smiled with a complex face. People are coming. Lombardi. I think they are Lombardis. A soldier working on the high side shouted loudly. Violet quickly gave Ramona the tea she was drinking and ran towards it. It was about 15 people who rode horses to the scene of the accident. Among them, about 10 people were wearing Lombardi's knight's uniform. Perhaps they found Violet too, and they started to drive towards Perhaps they found Violet too, and they started to drive towards her. Cluck, cluck, woo woo. The only horse carrying two people stopped with a loud throw. Then the man in the back got off the horse in a hurry. Lord Galliahan, Violet cried out in surprise. It took more than 10 days by courage from Lombardy to here. No matter how fast you drive, a horse, it takes a week. But arriving here in just 4 days, can't imagine what the journey was like. Tia, where is Tia? Galliahan, who was tired of his parish complexion to the limit at a glance, asked Violet as soon as he saw her. Not yet. Gallian staggered slightly at Violet's words. There was a man who held Gallian's shoulder like that. It was Clarivan. Please guide him to a place to sit, Miss Violet. And water and food. Warm would be better. Gilio and Maron, who arrived here with Galliahan, who were not used to riding in turn, rubbed their stiff eyes and said, I'll take you this way. Violet set up a bonfire nearby and guided Lombardi's group to sit and rest. People had already moved out of the way. The twins made a groaning sound when they barely attached their hips to the chair. Every castle that passed this far, they run, changing horses. Eventually, some of the knights, unable to find a new horse, had to be divided into two groups. It was a strong march that had never even heard of Lombardy's experienced knights. But everyone knew Galliahan's mind, so they run and run. Their horses. First, let me tell you about the progress we've made so far, Lord Galliahan. Violet explained what had happened so far in her calmest voice. She thought that she should not show her agitation. So you're saying the key is to get that huge rock out tomorrow? Galliahan, who listened to Violet's explanation, said, Yes, the mining engineer says there will be progress down there shortly. That's right. Mining technicians say we'll make progress down there in no time. The time. In no time. What do you say? There is a way? The method of detonating using the Manhattan used in the mine is the fastest, but it was excluded due to the risk of further collapsing of the ground, and there is only one method left. Violet said, barely wetting her dry mouth. Even if it takes time, it's about using equipment to recover rocks little by little and using aura swords to break out several pieces. The latter is probably the fastest and safest way. Violet blurted out her words. The only thing that can cut off that rock is His Highness Second Prince, the Sword Master. There's no way that the prince would spare his strength for Lady Laurentia's work, Violet. When Clarivan asked, frowning, Violet answered, biting her lower lip. Rather, it is a problem because His Highness is using too much energy. He has already collapsed several times. Even now, is the second prince here now? Gallian asked. Perez was a man of great presence. Although there are many people, Perez could not have been so unnoticed. Yes, over there. Violet pointed helplessly to one side. Is that Perez? Gilio said incredibly. He couldn't see clearly because it was dim, but he could see that it was the back of a man kneeling on the ground. It looked so small, so exhausted. He couldn't imagine Perez, who was always high and strong. We've tried to force him to take a break several times, but every time the person who tried to stop him, they got seriously injured. No one has dared to do so since 3 knights were injured. End of chapter 154. Chapter 155. While listening to Violet and looking at Perez, Gallihan got up from his seat. It was a straight, quick walk, though stumbling for a while. But a man was waiting for Gallihan on the road. It was Lord Ivan, who grew old in a few days. Lord Ivan talked as he approached Gallihan with a stiff complexion. Sir Lombardi, people's eyes were focused on the servile and shabby appearance. Please listen to me. But Lord Ivan couldn't say any more. It was because eyes with indescribable anger and tremendous pressure came as if they were pressing Lord Ivan. Gallihan did not say anything. He looked at Lord Ivan, who was stepping back little by little and walked back toward Perez. Rattle, rattle. As he moves closer to Perez, Gallihan heard a mechanical repetition, and the moment he finally stood behind Perez, Gallihan gritted his teeth. Rattle dog, rattle dog. Perez was lifting a stone with his bare hands. He doesn't even have the strength to stand. He's sitting on his knees. His fingertips holding the stone were already covered in blood. But Perez's gaze was fixed on the in the ground. But Perez's gaze was fixed only in the ground, like he thinks he'll see Tia when he gets there. Stop, Prince, Gallian said, taking a step closer. Perez stopped moving and slowly looked back. Gallian Lombardi? Perez's face was even worse. There were small and big scratches, and his lips were cracked and blood was hardened. But it was Perez's eyes that thrilled Gallian more than that. Empty, unfocused, cloudy red eyes. His daughter has spoken before, the story of the first time she met Perez by chance at the palace. It was red, but it looked like a fallen leaf that seemed to crumble and disappear if you hit it. Perez at that time. Perez, who sat on the ground and looked up at Gallihan, looked as if he had returned to that time. A small child who lived alone in the woods before meeting his daughter. Gallihan bent his knees, keeping Perez at eye level. Yes, it's me. Upon hearing the sweet voice of Gallihan, Perez's face was distorted. Sorry, I couldn't protect Tia, Perez said in a trembling voice. I should have been with her. In such a murmur, Perez began to move like a machine again, rustled and dug up rocks and dirt. I'm sure I'll find Tia. Just tap. Gallihan took Perez by the hand, and he asked, if Tia looks at your highness now, what do you think she will say? Perez looked down at his body instead of answering, and shut up tight. I think you already know the answer. You'll probably be scolded loudly, and I'm going to get in trouble too. What have I done without stopping you from doing this? Gallihan said so, and pulled the stone out of Perez's hand. You need to take a rest now. I don't want to rest. I'm not asking you to rest for your sake. It's for Tia. Gallihan said firmly. He said that we need your highness's aura sword to break the enormous rock below. That way, I can get my daughter out safely and quickly. I can still use aura. Perez picked up the sword that was lying next to him and blew in his mana, but aura rose as feeble as a haze for a moment, not as formative as before. Oh, Perez looked down at his sword for a moment and said nothing. Look at that. I'm telling you that this is of no help to Tia. Gallian raised Perez by the shoulder, speaking more strongly. It's usually out of the question, but Perez came up all too easily. That said, he was so exhausted. Gallian sighed softly and frowned. We will support you. Before he knew it, Lombardi's knights came to the side and said, the twins, Clarivan and Violet, were also together. Gallian handed Perez over the knight and spoke sternly. Take a rest and join forces from now on. They say we'll be able to remove all the rocks by tomorrow. That's when we need his highness. But before that, you'll need my aura to split the big rock. Perez shook his head at the rock still forming a small mountain. At that time, Gilio and Maron took off their robes and said, leave it to us. The two leading men simultaneously pulled out a sword from their waists. Whoa, and with a long breath, an aura rose from the twin swords. It wasn't as intense as Perez's, but it was an aura that enveloped the blade brilliantly. We can do that much, Go. The prince said to go and take a rest. Gilio and Mayron, who said so, lowered their swords toward the rock in front of them. Crackle, there was a deep gap on the rock with slight friction. This is enough to split, right? Gilio asked the workers waiting next to him. Yes, no problem. Those who answered vigorously followed the marks left by Aura and knocked on the hammer, and before long, the rock cracked with a thud. Okay, see? Well, we'll be cleaning up the rocks, so just get rest. Besides, we are two people, so we can take a break while taking turns. Perez looked at the twins for a moment and nodded slowly, and looking back at Galliahan, he said, I'm not going to work anymore. I'm going to sit here and rest. Here, I feel at ease. Please do so. When Gallian answered, Perez walked straight and sat on a distant rock. Food is important, Your Highness, Violet said, quickly handing Perez soft bread and water. Eating gives you strength. You have to prepare properly to cut through that thick rock. We need to get Tia out of here. That's what Gallian said to Perez, who hesitated slightly. Then Perez obediently took the bread and water. Come on, get ready one more time. Mayron raised an aura by shouting loudly. Bang, crackle. The scene, which had been stagnant, began to rejuvenate. Perez sat quietly on the rock and chewed on the bread. He moved his chin and gulped down the water again. It was only a move to conserve energy. Meanwhile, Perez's gaze did not fall from a single half-exposed rock. As if it had become the most important goal of his life, he constantly stared and chewed on bread. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Boom, thud. I woke up with a low, heavy sound. Rattle, with a slight vibration coming from the ceiling of the carriage. Did I hear something? Fortunately, Migente Ivan woke up, as if it was only his auditory hallucination. Maybe there will be another landslide. It could be, but rattle. Another low vibration followed by a sound. Whoa, Migante Ivan now looked completely hopeless. With desperate eyes, he looked up at the ceiling where dust fell and fell asleep again. Now I'm almost fainting because I don't have the power. I was in a bad condition as well. Whenever the vibration rung, I was worried about the dripping soil, but my eyes kept closing. If the ceiling collapses at this rate, I'll die. Then it wouldn't be bad to go without knowing anything in my sleep. It was time for my eyes to slowly close, thinking about it. Whoosh! One side of the ceiling was crushed with an apparent loud noise. Oh, but that's not why I was surprised. Quickly, lift it up. This is all. Hurry. In the meantime, the sound began to come into the carriage, which had only been quiet. At the same time, my heart started pounding. I managed to pick myself up and start shouting at the ceiling. Here, I'm here. Someone's alive here. But the sound didn't come out as loud as I thought. To make matters worse, I was exhausted and short of breath because of it. Ha! But I can't give up here. I closed my eyes again and screamed. Here, can you hear me? It doesn't seem to work. Well, you can't hear a voice like this while you're up there. Tia. Perez, that's right. Perez has far superiority in five senses than ordinary people. As he began to deal with aura, he began to hear even more and louder sounds. At the same time, the amount of intermittent drops has increased. Gradually, I started to hear people's voices better. I managed to reach out and wake Migente Ivan. Oh, but Migente Ivan barely opened his eyes and could not lift himself. I lifted the box containing chocolate cookies and shouted, hitting the wall of the carriage. Here, Perez, I'm here. But for a while, I was breathless and buzzing in front of my eyes. Eventually, I leaned my head against the wall and fought against my eyelids, which kept closing. Perez, Perez. All I could do was call Perez by his name, in a voice as big as an ant. Perez, I'm here. It was a moment when I thought I couldn't beat my heavier eyelids anymore. Crash! Light poured into the carriage with heavy noise. Having been accustomed to darkness for a long time, I couldn't see anything. But there's only one thing. Tia, there was a voice of Perez. I blindly reached out to the side, where I could hear the voice, with my eyes closed to avoid the light. Snap! And there was a hand that held my hand in the air. The hand snatched up my body, and I felt Perez's body hugging me. I stretched out my stuttering hand and grabbed Perez's collar with all my might. It's okay now. It's okay, Tia. That was all he said. At that moment, all the tension that had been holding me up was relieved, and I lost my consciousness. End of chapter 155.